When we talk about meditation, there is lots of confusion about this topic, especially because nowadays many serious processes have been sold and described in a very superficial way, a little bit due to the marketing era that we are living, where things are monetized and we make products and all the rest of it, but also to the fact that spirituality has kind of lost its seriousness. I don't mean that we have to become serious human beings. I mean that the truth of certain processes has been lost, giving more importance to the superficial aspect connected to the spiritual process. The meditation really, when we refer to this word, we are referring to a particular psychological and physical state that we cannot decide to do, in the sense that it's not some kind of gymnastic we can perform and we can say, I'm training myself, I'm lifting weights, and that's a fact. Meditation is something that happens naturally when we do certain things as a consequence. So not as a conscious decision of being in such a state, but rather as a consequence to do certain things that can help us to enter into that particular state. This leads to the fact that we improperly use the word meditation all the time. Even myself, I say I'm going to do a little bit of meditation, which I mean I'm going to do certain exercises that will try to facilitate the natural flourishing of this process, like a flower blossoming naturally. And this also leads to certain misconceptions, especially because we are a very intellectual individual. We fantasize about something particular about meditation, like a very special and unique experience. In one sense it is, because it's different from the usual way that we operate in our daily life. But it is part of the human being, so it's not something we construct through certain techniques, such as a mantra or some specific exercises. We have to see those techniques, especially when they work and they come from a proven system, as a tool that can help us to develop naturally and to flourish this natural state that we call meditation, as a particular psychological and physical state that happens naturally. In the Qigong system, of course, it is a practice that involves consciousness, in the sense that we become aware more and more of ourselves in many different aspects, physical, emotional, and mental aspect. Meditation plays a very important role, also because it is a state of clarity and of presence that allows a greater perception of ourselves. So it means also that involves the energetic aspect. In fact, meditation, the meditative state and the energetic aspect, they go hand in hand. That's why I put some emphasis, and I shared with my students certain tools, such as the Wheel of Life of Buddha teaching that I received from my Buddhist teacher, to help people understand, even at the beginning intellectually, what meditation can be, and then practicing, which is the best way of actually talking about these things and experiencing the facts firsthand for ourselves. In the Qigong system, we have a practice called Zheng, So, Da, Fa, where we do 4 exercises. As I said, these exercises, like an exercise that we call meditation improperly, have the function of helping us to enter naturally into this state, which is not an intellectual state that we can describe with words, of course. But what we can say for sure is that we create a little bit of distance between the mind movement and the physical perception in one sense. Although the mind and the body is going to behave in a certain way. The mind is going to be more relaxed, and the body is going to be more open. We don't have to forget the strong connection that there is between these two aspects of ourselves, the body and the mind. In fact, when we work with the Qigong system, even on the first level, where we're removing the tension from all the segments of the body and become aware of it, we're also working with our attention, so with our meditativeness, if I can say like this. With these practices in the Zheng, So, Da, Fa, we try to create the perfect conditions to allow this natural state to flourish within us. The exercises themselves are not important in the sense that they are the tool but not the final destination. And this is an issue that we make all the time when we do this kind of spiritual practices. We think actually that the tool is the destination, in the sense that I repeat some mantra and there is a special quality about this mantra, about these external tools that I'm using, really connected to it. But in reality, these tools, these exercises, they represent like a bridge where we naturally can cross to the other shore, but not by, I don't want to say believing too much on them, but just using them in the right way. In this sense, meditation can be a very misleading topic, especially nowadays where things are getting confused. There is abundance of information on the web and abundance of practices. It's very difficult to understand actually where we're going. In one sense, there's nothing to understand because it's a part of ourselves. In the other sense, certain exercises can help us to discover it for ourselves. And meditation, the meditative state, the meditativeness of the mind, for sure represents the best starting point for the investigation of reality. And when I mean investigation of reality, I don't mean just exploring higher human possibilities. I mean just perceiving life as it is without coloring with our mind movements, perceptions, and all the histories and dramas and beliefs that we carry on. So it's really something that everybody should do, regardless of what we do in life, because it's the base that allows us to live life with more awareness and see things as they are, rather than how we color them through our perception, identity, personality. In the Qigong, in the Qigong, the meditativeness of the mind, it's really the base, and it is required to do certain work in the right way. Also because we have to understand that the less movement there is in the mind, the more the body is open, the better we can work with ourselves on many levels. Going back to the practice of Zheng Fa. Currently it was taught as the third level of Qigong. After the Xishan Qigong, the first level where we take care of our body, although we can separate the human beings into pieces, let's say it's the most physical practice of Qigong, where we really open the whole body and sometimes can even become physically demanding. The second level is the Yang Qigong, where we start to work with this expression of the energy called Yang energy. Although, don't get me wrong, don't make distinction between Yang, Yin, and all the rest of it, like we're talking about different things. When we talk about energy, we're really Yang and Yin, for instance, we're really talking about one kind of expression on another kind. Like water can be hot water or cold water, it's always water. So we have to understand that. So after these two levels, in the past was taught the Zheng Fa as the first meditative practice. Now Shifu Costantino Valente, a month ago, decided to introduce a new refined program for the basic exercises, where now represents the second level. I'm not teaching yet the new program, also because the old program works perfectly. It has been used on hundreds of students and it has brought amazing results. But Shifu decided to make some adjustment because due to his will of getting better and better on what he's doing and allowing people to move, to have some sensations, and also to reduce the time between practices, because in the Qigong system, between each practice we need to accumulate a certain number of months actually before moving on. But the system as it is already works, and soon I'm going to be learning the new practices. I'm going to be meeting Shifu in the next few days, and I'm going to start to propose the possibility to learn the new program. Although it's not needed for the old students, so to speak, I will propose also these programs if we want to add new tools to our toolkit, if I can select this. But not going back to the topic of this video, meditation for sure, the meditativeness of the mind represents a key important point in our personal evolution. As I said, whether we are interested in martial arts, we want to take the vital energy to a very high degree, we want to help others, or we just want to live life in a proper way. The meditativeness of the mind establishes a new quality and way of living with life. And there are certain practical things that we can use to verify whether we are just believing and hypnotizing ourselves with some concept or with some experiences. In fact, the meditativeness of the mind is not strictly connected and restricted to the moment that we practice. That will be a quite not useful thing to do. If I practice 40 minutes per day and during those 40 minutes I feel blessed out and there is a certain space in my mind, and the rest of the day I'm completely all over the place and thrown up and down by life, well, it means that we still have some work to do. The real work of Qigong is not confined to the practice. Its transformation takes place in our own life. So when we start to do meditative practices, first of all, with the Zheng Sodafa, we are able to stay longer in meditation. So we are able to stay quiet, sitting and in a very deep and quiet space for a long time, very long time. And that's the first time that we look after this aspect of ourselves in the Qigong system. But also a personal change takes place, because the inner movement is gonna get quieter and quieter. Also the way we're gonna respond to life is gonna change. In fact, it's normal in one way that the path, the Qigong system, is gonna transform the way we are. Otherwise we will not be useful, isn't it? It's not about just emitting some silly superpowers or achieving some kind of mystical thing. Life is life. So we want to practice and we want to apply and bring the outcome of the practice in our daily life. And naturally, when we do this kind of meditative practices like the Zheng Sodafa, the way that we respond to life change. And there is a very simple way that can make us understand if we're moving in the right direction. Am I less reactive to life? There is more space. I'm feeling more connected to life rather than just engaging with my inner chattering all the time. I'm able just to sit on the chair and stay quiet and just feel fine. Because constant as human beings, we want, we desire, there is constant movement. Well, with this kind of practices, this starts to reside and go down to the ground, if I can say like this. And more openness and connection to life is a natural consequence of these processes. And of course, it means that we can make better decisions. We can be more ourselves, which ultimately is what we are all trying to do here. Quietening that inner conflict that we have for X reason, because when we come here, we are a bunch of conflicts, and then we go through all traumatic experiences from childhood to later in life, you know, society, family, we get traumatized by all those things. Well, when we start to dive into some kind of serious meditation practice, as I said, meditation is not the practice itself, but is the natural quality of the mind and the body developed by these practices. We have the chance of quietening our inner struggle and our conflicts in life and feel more connected, feel more in touch with ourselves and make better choices, and ultimately living a more fulfilling life. This is one aspect and one goal and one outcome of these practices. But for sure, diving more into the quietness, the presence of ourselves, not intellectually, experientially, can open the door to a greater investigation of life. And the best thing we can do, and the good thing that happens, is that we do it objectively, more objectively, than when we try to fantasize and research this kind of mysticism through books, through words, through sacred sentences, and all the rest of it. We naturally dive and turn the attention towards the subject. And when I mean subject, I'm not just mean body and mind that I represent at the moment, but that's the moment where we actually start to open the door to a greater investigation of life that, paired together with the vital energy, it can make us discover greater human potential, not because we want to be better than somebody else, but just because since we are here, we try to live to the fullest and we try to explore. And there is a great connection and pleasure that comes from it, that belongs to a sense of connection with the grace of life as a practical and personal experience, not based on thoughts, on being grateful for some kind of circumstance that might live in life. That could be the beginning of it. You know, that could be something we could all do. We could wake up in the morning and I'm feeling grateful for this, for that. That's already a good way of trying to improve my life. But when we dive into meditation more and more, naturally we can start to have this greater connection with life, let's call it grace, that it's powered by itself, not by a thought, not by a life circumstance, not by believing into something, but through a natural connection with something greater than ourselves, which is life itself, and its mysterious essence in one sense, because life is a big process and we just perceive certain things through senses, but this doesn't mean that it's all. And by saying this, I don't mean that we should sit, practice and fantasize about other universe or the rest of it. If there is something more, you'll find out for yourself. And we don't know where it ends, honestly speaking, because it's just about extending our human awareness about what it is possible. My mind could be focused and narrowed only on one thing, but if I start to relax a bit more open and I'm silent, am I able to perceive more? Whether we're talking about on the physical aspect, energetic aspect, emotional aspect, subtleties moving inside ourselves, mental aspect. So that's why the meditative state is a great stone to place in our growth, to become aware of ourselves. And we have to do it in the right way. That's why I'm shooting this video, just to give you a little insight about what meditation is not. Meditation is not an exercise, meditation is not a mantra, meditation is not visualizing and watching a sacred scripture or watching a sacred painting. Meditation is a quality of the mind and the body that happens naturally when we create certain conditions and when we are open to life and we are 100% connected to it, no intellectually. So it's not a process of isolating ourselves, it's rather the opposite, being fully open and starting first with the practice, with a little moment during the day, to later on bring the same awareness and connection in our daily life, to improve our life, the way we live, and what we can do in this world.